Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the differences between the Aquarius Sun, the Aquarius Moon and the Aquarius Rising. Now this series is an updated version of a series that I made about 4 years ago, so back in 2017 on the channel, but I would like to hope that within the past 4 years that my knowledge and understanding of astrology has certainly widened. My opinions have changed, I've learned new things, so I hope that I'm able to bring new, interesting and insightful pieces of information to the table today. Now I also recommend you watch the entire video, so everything throughout, even if you're here for your sun, moon or rising, because things can interlink, things can interconnect, and also things can change. Just keep that in mind, depending upon your sun, moon and rising combinations. Now, of course, I just want to mention that this is my own analysis. However, if you do have any thoughts and opinions, then definitely feel free to share in the comment section down below. I would really appreciate your feedback, because after all, you know what, we're all learning here together. Now, before we do jump into this, definitely make sure that you give this video a like if you like it. Also make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and to of course click that little bell icon so that you can keep yourself updated with further content from myself. And one more just quick thing is that I have a merchandise store, so if any of you are interested in picking up a piece or an item, then go to the link in the description box below. Okay, so with all those introductions out of the way, let's do this. Okay, so just a brief overview of the sun, moon and rising. These three placements are often referred to as your big three within the astrological community, and many people do like to mention them as just as a way to express their very basic personality. Naturally, however, as most of us know here, astrology goes much deeper than these three components, but I still think it's a good idea to learn about these three placements, especially if you're a beginner. But even if you're more advanced, I still recommend watching, because who knows, maybe you will learn something new. Okay, so to begin, let's look at the sun in Aquarius. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some keywords just on the screen. So make sure to read through those keywords, take them in. These are all keywords associated with the sun in astrology. But what does this mean if these keywords are combined with the sign or with the archetype of Aquarius? Well, it creates an energy of conscious, purposeful difference and non-conformity, and of unpredictable creativity, of original self-expression, also of startling moments of celebration, and it also creates an energy of a strong, independent identity. But what does this specifically say about you if you were born under this sun sign? So meaning that your sun is in Aquarius natally. Well, it suggests that you are intrinsically aware that you're here to make a difference within the world, as if there's something that you are here to change and shake up. Whether this change or this difference be amongst your peers or your friends, or within your career or your occupation, or within the lives of your children or your family, wherever you create change and make a difference, you may feel like it's your purpose to do so. Then again, for many Aquarius suns, this difference often expands further afield, and the greater the reach, the bigger the change, right? So for example, maybe you observe the fashion or the beauty industry, and you pick up on all of the inconsistencies or all of the things that you think are wrong or corrupt or flawed in some way. Then what you do is you seek to purposefully change that fashion or beauty scene. So you seek to create change within those environments. So another example Maybe you observe the mental health facilities that are available today, and you notice all of the things that you're highly suspicious of. Again, you may seek to purposefully change something within that very area, such as people receiving help if they really need it. Though, I just want to use myself as another example here. I have an Aquarius sun and I am determined to make a difference within the astrological arena. I really seek to change people's perspectives from being solely one sign, but to a mixture of all 12. Essentially, Aquarius suns, you are typically people who seek to disrupt the current way of doing things within particular systems. And so you'll invent strategies in order to create the life that you wish to live, along with what you wish to see within the world. But as you're inventing strategies and coming up with all these outside of the box ideas, you'll experiment as a way to see what does or doesn't work for you, what you like, what you don't like, what you gel with, what you just don't gel with. You'll play around with different concepts and different theories, different ideas, and your creativity will most likely reflect the concepts and theories that you try out, and you'll most likely have a lot of fun doing this. You'll gladly enjoy yourself. You know, maybe during your younger years, you observed how children dressed and how they behaved, or maybe you noticed how adults would speak to each other or how grown-up couples would act towards each other, which, by the way, as an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, you observe a lot. Though still, as the Aquarius sun individual, maybe you viewed a lot of these human interactions around you, and what you did is you formed patterns and connections in your mind based on what you saw and observed. And in a way, you developed your ego and your identity based on what you picked up. So for example, maybe you saw how everyone in school was wearing a certain pair of shoes, but then you thought, I'm not really a big fan of those. Next thing you know, your mom is buying you the same pair and you're like, but mom, no, they are gross. Why did you buy me those? I don't want those. Or maybe you saw how people in school were bunching or sort of grouping up together, but instead of fitting into one particular group, you sort of floated in and out of many different groups. And you might have actually avoided certain groups that you could sense were bad news, or maybe you watched as your parents got to do things that you couldn't, and you would think, oh my god, this is so unfair, why can't I be a part of this, why can't I join in? Then again, perhaps there were times when you refused to listen to your parents, you refused to follow their direction or go where they demanded you to go. Seriously, demanding an Aquarius sun individual to do anything, like demanding them to do things, yeah, it's a losing battle, especially because their ego and their pride it's coming into play here. Yeah, unless you have the freedom, so Aquarius suns, unless you have the freedom to choose, you'll most likely throw a fit or you'll act all dramatic whilst trying to keep your emotions intact. However, I think this is typically during your younger years, but as you do get older, you do much better with taking direction or taking orders. Then again, maybe for some of you, it really depends on what the order is, what the command is. You could still be an Aquarius sun individual who's in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and if there's a certain thing that you stand by, or if there's a certain thing that you will not follow, yeah, you will commit to that. If people are trying to tell you to be quiet, there can be this tendency of you speaking even louder then. Or if there are people who are trying to say, no, you need to slow down, you must slow down. In the Aquarius sun's mind, it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go faster. So going back to the previous examples that I mentioned earlier, I also think at times you do try out things that the majority are doing. It's just that you possess a lot of pride towards choosing for yourself. You like to know that you have the freedom to follow or the freedom to stay put. So in this respect, you might try out certain hobbies or projects, or you might mix with certain groups of people just to see what it's like, just to see what it's all about. Yeah, it's as if you're willing to see what will happen, and really, no matter the outcome from these experimentations, so to speak, you still learn. You still learn a great deal from them. Though furthermore, you might be a big advocate for freedom of thought or for freedom of speech. So you may say something like, I have the right to my opinion, or I have the right to stand here if I want. Likewise, you might gladly express that others have the freedom to choose as well. Though on the other hand, there's also a tendency of you possessing very strong opinions and very strong beliefs. And these opinions and beliefs may be so strong that you often clash with others over theirs. I suppose in this respect, it's to be expected. Now, on one hand, this shows that you do take pride in your convictions. You firmly hold on to those opinions and you cannot be persuaded otherwise. And this can certainly be a very admirable trait. And also, you know how to put your money where your mouth is. So if it is that you have a certain strong opinion or belief about something, you will live according to that opinion or belief until, of course, you change your mind or something else happens. But as I say, you put your money where your mouth is. But on the other hand here, when you clash with others, things can turn for the worst, or they can result in chaos. So you might fall out with your friends, for example, or you might lose a job, or you might not speak to your own mother for weeks on end. Now, don't get me wrong, there's probably times whenever your convictions are necessary, especially if you work in a political field or if you work within the justice system, and especially if people are actually being just plain out rude and cruel. But other times, maybe, quite possibly, it's your fixed, stubborn attitude that can block you from hearing other people's opinions or from letting go of something that isn't really a big deal. Or from picking up the damn phone to give your mother a call. Now, this stubbornness can be associated with the moon and the rising as well, but it's you Aquarius suns that are the most opinionated, the most stubborn. In my own personal opinion, it's you who must always be right the most, and maybe the reason for why I say this is because the sun is associated with ego and pride. Therefore, you might be unwilling to bend or to admit whenever you're wrong, because, well, admitting one is wrong, it hurts the ego. The ego doesn't like to be wrong. Or you might prefer it when others just say you're right all the time because it feels much better. Feels the ego. So on the other hand, this is where it gets quite interesting because, well, you also care about others. In fact, you might possess a great deal of honor towards being a humanitarian, or the very least, towards being someone who is very thoughtful and caring towards others. And so if you think, oh my gosh, I am actually in the wrong here, you most likely rectify the situation that you were wrong about. Same goes for others here, because if you think that someone else is genuinely sorry about something that they did, you will accept their apology, or you'll hear them out, or maybe you'll even welcome them back into your life. It really depends on the situation. It's funny because, as I say, on one side of this, you want to take others into consideration, but then in the other side, you can have a fixed mindset when it comes to your individual perspective. And the mix of these two things can cause havoc and confusion within your life and within the lives of others as well. It can result in the likes of unintentional hypocrisy, for example. Though, no matter what comes about with this type of behavior, you're typically someone who is continuously reinventing yourself. Sure, you might have an opinion about something for a while, but in a flash, out of nowhere, that opinion might change, and with every firmly held belief or opinion, your ego is linked with it. You might associate with certain ideas or certain beliefs or causes or communities or movements or parties or groups that you identify with them to the extreme. Take myself, for example. I identify with astrology pretty strongly. I mean, my whole YouTube channel is about astrology. A couple of years ago, I was greatly identified with veganism. A couple of years before that, fitness, exercise. Maybe if or when I do become a mother one day, I'll identify strongly with being a mother. Who knows? But maybe you, as an Aquarius sun person, maybe you can reflect, or rather relate to what I'm saying. Heck, even me calling my viewers by placements on here is a sort of a form of me identifying you guys with the ideas or with the concepts. Then again, maybe there's some of you out there who are like, yeah, but astrology is gospel truth, so no, it's more than just an idea. I am an Aquarius, okay? Though I do wonder, is it that some of you grew up with a father figure who took pride in his worldviews and in his ideas, or in humanity? You know, he really took pride in his ideas towards the world. Or maybe your father was quite the humanitarian himself, always giving generously to others and reaching out to serve within the community in any way that he could. I know my father's like this, and he's always serving within his church. The following on from this point, furthering on from this point, maybe your father identified with something greater than himself. And perhaps he instilled in you similar qualities, or maybe he directed more of his attention towards such things that you as an individual or as a child, you weren't given enough attention or love from him. So this whole notion of giving his praise to the world whilst providing very little praise towards you. Then again, perhaps the way he expressed or showed you love and attention was somewhat awkward, kind of unusual. Maybe he didn't know how to show his love, or maybe he wasn't ready to have another child whenever you were born, or maybe there were so many other children in the household that he found it difficult to fully express love towards you on an individual level, more personal level. Or perhaps his mind was just simply elsewhere. He was just caught up in his thoughts because of how much responsibility he had. So whatever the case, there seems to be a suggestion of a type of detached or an unusual love from the father, along with detached attention and praise and validation. Naturally, however, I am not suggesting that your father did not love you or does not love you. This is just more saying that he loved you in his own specific way. And, you know, he could quite have possibly had a very big heart. Maybe he does have a big heart. Though, to be fair, on the other hand of this, maybe for some of you out there, there was actually an absence of a father figure growing up. Then again, see, it can go in all different ways here. Then again, perhaps you often connected with him on a more communicative, intellectual level. Maybe you inherited his reason and his rationale, or maybe you picked up on his quirks and his eccentricities. I know for myself, I'll do this thing that my dad does where he would say a word incorrectly and then correct himself instantly after. He is an Aquarius as well, by the way. Though come to think about it, could it be suggested that a part of the reason for why you give your attention to the world, Aquarius Suns, you give your attention to humanity, is because of how your father did? Or maybe an absence of love and validation from him has led to the absence of love and validation within yourself. And so you strive for this better world, this world where people are kind and cooperative, but yet there's this battle within you over your individual identity and ego. There's this battle within you of love and compassion and self-acceptance. Maybe you think that by making a difference in the world, you'll feel more aligned with who you are. But what if sometimes you put up a front because you don't want to address anything painful? Maybe this is something to think about, Aquarius Suns. It's interesting because much too often Aquarians are labelled as emotionless and cold, and at times you may act this way out of pride and dignity. You know, the attitude I mean, Aquarius Suns, is this too cool for school, or I'm just so above the petty things. Yeah, you know what I mean. But yet, you are some of the most loving and sincere and warm-hearted people. You just sometimes don't know how to express or show these things towards others. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should, but I think with time, Aquarius Suns, you grow to more outwardly, just to be more outwardly soft and more outwardly tender, so to speak, and outwardly emotional as well. It's as if you grow to openly express words of affirmation and praise and love and gratitude. So yeah, you're not emotionless people, but you can have the tendency of concealing how you feel openly with others. Though I also think these things with opening up, etc., and expressing how you feel, it comes with trust, it comes with loyalty from other people towards you too. It's not that, you know, you should necessarily express how you feel to just about anyone. Of course, I do understand that maybe for you it's about creating a good, solid, friendly bond first. Then again, you can have the tendency of giving people the benefit of the doubt, especially whilst you were younger. And giving people the benefit of the doubt may have led to you actually feeling quite, you know, untrustworthy towards others too. So there is that. Though the last thing I just want to touch on here is the creative side of things, because you're typically someone who prefers original creativity, but at the same time, you also acknowledge that creativity is something that can be reinvented. You might even combine the two when it comes to your own creativity. Also, when it comes to your self-expression here as well, along with those creative projects that you may be working on. So for example, perhaps you become inspired by a piece of art or by an author or by a YouTube video, and then you recreate it or you reinvent it by adding a unique twist to it. Or perhaps you come up with a completely original idea that no one else has done before, which then opens the door to other creative ideas and other creative projects, not only from yourself, but from other people too. But essentially, you're most likely someone who takes a lot of pride in your creative ideas and projects. Though on the other hand, you might do this whole stubborn thing where you refuse to be seen as unoriginal. And so maybe you'll turn down an opportunity, for example, or maybe you'll not branch out, as another example. Still, however, you sort of like knowing that your creative projects possess some level of difference and individuality. And when you are celebrated for such things, your ego is most likely stroked. You'll most likely feel really, really good about yourself. Though what I also want to mention here is how some astrologers do like to associate the sun with the type of individual that we are striving to become. And so in your case, Aquarius Suns, perhaps you're striving to become this visionary, innovative individual who is all about serving others. Now, before we do move on to the moon, also make sure to locate the house placement of the sun, because this is going to show the area of life that this energy is playing out in. And also remember aspects, because aspects can show you any difficulties that may arise along with other energies that may influence that sun energy. Okay, so moving along, let's now look at the moon in Aquarius. So what I want you to do is read these keywords associated with the moon, take them in, read them through. Now, what does this mean if these keywords are combined with the sign or the archetype of Aquarius? Well, it creates an energy of rebellion, unpredictability, and non-conformity based on emotional reactions and emotional needs. And it also creates an energy of unconscious innovation and objectivity. Likewise, it creates an energy of observing one's emotions and emotional needs and patterns, along with an energy of being a part of something bigger than oneself as a way of feeling safe and emotionally secure. But more specifically, what does this say about you if you were born under this moon sign? So meaning that you have your moon in Aquarius natally. Well, it suggests that within your family home, there was much unpredictability along with somewhat foreign ideas and concepts. Maybe, for example, your family moved house whilst you were growing up, or maybe you relocated, your entire family relocated to a completely different country altogether, or perhaps frequent changes occurred which resulted in a lack of consistency or routine and stability. Or maybe it felt like there was a lack of order, a lack of structure at times, possibly due to sudden events. These sudden events and these frequent changes may have included the likes of your grandmother moving in due to illness, or your father moving abroad for a short period of time, or your sister falling pregnant from a very young age and then living at home with you and your family. Or this could have been the likes of your brother's partner bunking in the room right next to you within your home growing up. Though perhaps you were taken care of by a mother figure who was quite quirky and quite friendly, but was also strong-minded and harsh at times. Maybe she was quite free-spirited in a way, but still when it came to her opinions and beliefs, they were quite, very, very firm. Though maybe her parenting didn't make sense to you. Maybe you would often question it, or maybe she was just all over the place, and she might have had a non-conventional or unusual job possibly, such as working night hours, really late hours, or working from home even, or quite perhaps you often observed your mother as being someone who gave generously to the world or to others, but had less time to give to you and your family at times. Maybe she was an actress or an entertainer, for example, or maybe she was a nurse or a doctor, or maybe she was in the police force or within the special services, or quite perhaps she's always occupied or was always occupied with groups and communities and clubs that she was or is a part of. Though kind of going back to her being all over the place, maybe she just had so much on her plate that it was hard for her to feel grounded and centered. Maybe she just took on a lot of responsibilities, though on the other hand, maybe you viewed her as quite hypocritical and inconsistent, or perhaps there was a lack of following through when it came to her. And so as you with someone who has moon in Aquarius, you often, as I say, you questioned her. Specifically, you questioned her reasoning and her logic. Maybe you would clearly pick up on little things that she did that weren't logical and that didn't make sense, and so you point them out. And if you ever challenged her on her inconsistencies, she would somehow always have an answer for everything. Now, this doesn't need to be a super heavy or serious thing here that you do challenge her on. I mean, it could be, but it might be just something that's more fun, something that's more connected with having just quick, witty comebacks to things. But the point being, perhaps you Aquarius moons, you learn through her or through your family unit and your upbringing just as a whole, how to spot the unreasonable or illogical patterns and cycles in people, especially in other people's emotional state. So for example, you might be comforting a friend who is upset and you might say something like, something to me here doesn't add up. And then you proceed to state why you think this and what your reasonings are for this. And you can certainly add a level of objectivity to the conversation as well, even if this objectivity doesn't make sense to the person who is upset or feeling a certain way. Though on one hand here, your objective view of the stressful or emotional situation can really help, be very supportive. You can provide others with very useful, knowledgeable pieces of information that can be so insightful and so educational. But yet on the other side of this, your objectivity might go over the other person's head, especially if they're feeling super emotional about a situation that they're extremely caught up in. Now, it might even get to the point where you become frustrated because nothing you say that makes sense to you is making sense to the other person. Some of you might even avoid heavy or deep emotional conversations for this very reason. I suppose that this may be why a better strategy or a better plan for you is to wait until the high emotional tide has passed or lessened. That way the other person is going to be more clear-headed and then you can work your magic from there. Though to be fair, I do understand that in certain situations it's not as easy as that. You know, some people just want to be in that emotional state and go through it, but then you as the Aquarius moon person, may be difficult for you to kind of get in there during that time. Communication is definitely key here, and just that kind of emotional understanding on both sides. Though to be fair, the same thing could be said when it comes to your own emotions, Aquarius moons, because you might struggle to articulate how you're feeling. Though to be fair, you might know what you're feeling, but it's just how you share that with others that might come out all over the place. You might also talk around the emotion or talk about your emotions as if they're outside of you. So on the other hand, maybe for some of you, it's the articulation of what you need emotionally that's the difficult part. Perhaps at times you don't think people get you emotionally, or like they can't possibly feel nor relate with what you're going through. It's sort of this whole attitude of you just wouldn't get it, or I'm too deep, like you don't understand, you wouldn't understand. Perhaps growing up, you know, maybe you felt like an outcast, or maybe you were a loner, or you felt like one. Maybe you didn't fit in with the family, or maybe there was something different about you that your family can never understand or get. Then again, perhaps you rebelled against your family structures or principles and foundations and their traditions. This could have been the likes of you having a different sexual orientation to your brothers or your sisters, or you having a different different dietary needs to your family, or you maybe going down a different educational route in comparison to other family members. Or it could even have been that you gravitated towards different religious practices in comparison to your family. Though whatever the case, there's this I'm going to do what I want family. I'm going to do what I want to do. I love you, but I am my own person. I am my own individual. And what's further interesting about this is how your strongly held beliefs may be tied with your emotions. And it's funny because I said Aquarius suns might be the most stubborn because of their ego and their pride, but maybe the fixed nature of your beliefs and your opinions depends on how you're feeling, Aquarius moons. I mean, if you've been deeply emotionally impacted by a certain situation, then perhaps you're more likely to stay true to your convictions. So for example, maybe you've struggled with food for a lot of your life, or maybe you've experienced a death within your own life because of food. So then you go on and you incorporate a whole new way of eating, and there's no one changing your mind on the matter. Or maybe, as another example, you've been personally scrutinized, bullied for your sexual orientation. Then what you do is you go on and you fully embrace your sexual orientation by letting the world know that this is me, this is who I am, and I am not changing for anyone. Or let's say, as another example, you've been emotionally impacted by how you were mistreated at school by teachers or your peers. Maybe they made fun of for you being the weird nerd in class, or for you having a different way of studying or learning, and so you go on to teach others later on in your life. Or maybe you become an advocate individual when it comes to learning and educational growth. So, looking at individual learning and educational growth, it's just more directed to individuals. Again, there's no coming along and telling you, no, you can't do that. Though on the other hand, maybe you're a bit more nonchalant, just nonchalant when it comes to things that don't really impact you emotionally. Most likely, in this case, you're gonna let things slide if you're not feeling a particular way about a certain situation. Though to be fair, maybe you're quite good at playing it smart when it comes to your opinions and your beliefs, especially if it means protecting yourself or keeping yourself safe. For example, you might be quite good at managing your emotions if it means gaining valuable information from somebody else. Or you might conceal your opinions during times whenever you think someone else requires more empathy and understanding from you. But following on from this point, maybe there's an internal dialogue or this conversation going on in your mind when supporting or comforting others. So you might think, okay, this isn't what this person needs me to say right now, so I'll not say that. Or I'll keep this statement for another time whenever it will be much more impactful. And so the same thing may be linked with your safety and protection, where you play it smart as a way to keep yourself safe. However, I'm not suggesting that you are the type of person who avoids conflict. In fact, I think you're pretty comfortable with disagreements because that way they can be talked about. I am more referring to times whenever you think, that is just not worth my time. And quite honestly, I think you're good at calmly removing yourself from situations or people who you believe are not worth your time. And you might also disconnect emotionally from such situations and people. Though that's not to say that those previous experiences or the previous memories, that they will not come back to your mind from time to time. It's more that you can emotionally detach yourself from an emotion or feeling that arises. Now, this approach can certainly serve you well. It can certainly help you from sort of spiraling into a sea of regret or shame or guilt, for example. But then again, there may be times whenever you cut yourself off from those types of emotions that manage to creep back up, and it could quite possibly be these things that could do with some diving into or reassessing. This could be a repressed memory from the past, for example, or it could be a past relationship that you haven't dealt with completely, or it could be an event from your childhood that's impacted you greatly but you keep avoiding it. But following on from this point, I think you're someone who reads into your emotional patterns and cycles. You might do this from a more rational, logical standpoint. But when you do, maybe you evolve or you grow as a person with each and every time you do it. So yeah, you might be quite good at tracing things back and understanding why you feel or felt a certain way. Likewise, you might be quite good at helping others understand the roots of their emotions as well. After all, you most likely get a bigger picture perspective when it comes to these things. And this is one major difference, I think, between the sun in Aquarius and the moon in Aquarius, because the sun in Aquarius is more concerned with the outer patterns and cycles, whilst the moon in Aquarius is more concerned with the inner patterns and cycles. Though when it does come to your own emotional needs, Aquarius moons, I think you're typically the types of people who require space so you can work things through on your own. Now, I do think the same thing could be said when it comes to Aquarius suns, but I think the reason for why Aquarius suns do this is because of how they have a harder time with vulnerability. However, for you Aquarius moons, I think you struggle with being misunderstood for how you feel, and so perhaps you go into hiding as a way to make sense of things first before you then come back out. Then again, maybe this whole idea of space is more about not feeling smothered or pressured by others. Maybe you're not typically people who need pity or all the sympathy and like, woe is me, when you're feeling down, for example. Or maybe you preferred if people would back off a little bit when you're riding a deep or overwhelming emotional wave. And I also think you prefer it if you can ride your emotions freely without judgment, and if you ever do sense or pick up on judgment from others for how you feel, you might be quick to cut them off or not talk to them again. Though essentially, I think you're the types of people who prefer it if you can feel your emotions without feeling like people are like on top of you. Yeah, you probably can't stand feeling smothered or caved in by others. Though the last thing I want to mention with this is how something bigger than yourself might provide you with plenty of emotional support. This may be a friendship circle that can feel very welcoming and very inviting, or this may be a community online that shares similar values and similar views to your views. Or this may be a group or a club that you join where you're all coming together to support and to sort of participate in a particular cause. Though whatever the case, you might unconsciously gravitate towards groups of people or movements that align with your beliefs and your mindset. And I suppose in a way, this is connected with another difference between the Aquarius sun and the Aquarius moon, because the Aquarius sun is actively, consciously seeking these things, whilst the Aquarius moon is doing it on autopilot without much conscious thought. And I suppose also it's more connected with those emotions, those feelings, right? So it's like feeling like there's something that you really should be doing as a way to make a change in the world. It all just kind of happens for you Aquarius moons, and once you do feel a part of something bigger than yourself, you might feel right at home, where you feel a great sense of like emotional comfort and belonging. Now, before we do move on to the Ascendant, of course it's good to locate the house placement of the moon, because this is going to show you the area of life that this is all playing out in. But also remember aspects respectfully, because aspects can show you any difficulties that may arise along with any other energies that may influence that moon energy. Okay, so last but not least, let's move on to the Aquarius rising or the Aquarius ascendant. I've got some keywords here connected with the ascendant. Read those through, take them in. But what does this mean if these keywords are combined with the sign or the archetype of Aquarius? Well, it creates an energy of an eccentric and non-conforming physical appearance, of quirky and startling mannerisms and movements, of an experimental life path and direction, of non-traditional self-discovery, and of sudden bursts of energy. But what does this specifically mean about you if you were born under this rising sign, meaning that you have an Aquarius rising natally? Well, it suggests that you're forever viewing the world through this lens of humanity, of theoreticals, of concepts, of freedom, and kindness, but you're also viewing it through this lens of individuality, and also through a lens of future events and what is still to come. You see where trends are forming and where patterns are developing. And so what you do is you set off on this journey of self-discovery, as you seek to discover and find out for yourself what these patterns and trends are and what they mean for your future and for the future of mankind as well. You, much like the Aquarius suns and Aquarius moons, you set off to find how you can make a difference, but this is a quest for you Aquarius risings. It's a life path, it's a journey. Now, some astrologers do say that the sun sign is connected with purpose and the type of person we are striving to become, but the ascendant is connected with the life path, with that journey. So in your case, if you have an Aquarius rising, also make sure to locate your sun for more information into purpose. But still, when it comes to your life path, maybe you discover more about yourself whenever you're left to your own devices or whenever you're left to figure things out on your own. But the whole point is that you're initiating some form of change based on what you learn or discover. So for example, maybe you read many theories online on certain subject matters, or maybe you seek to challenge the minds of other people, or maybe you sit back and you observe newsfeed and media rather than getting too heavily attached or emotionally invested. And then as you move throughout your day, just your day-to-day life and just throughout the world, as a whole, you notice, oh, hey, this person's talking about that theory that I learned the other day. Or, oh, hey, this person shares the same opinion as this other person that I talked to last week. Or, hey, this person wants to know my view on this particular news article that I read yesterday. It's as if you are collecting data in your mind, and so as you view the world around you, you're adding to that data. You're adding numbers and codes and calculations all in your head, and when you need to use it, you will. This can make you great at socializing and communicating with new people, for example, because most likely than not, you'll have a piece of something stored away in your mind to use at any given moment. When this time strikes to, in a flash, you'll come out with the idea or the story or the connection. Whatever it is, it'll be striking and probably as fast as lightning. Though on the other hand, it might be interruptive, disruptive, it may be inappropriate, it may be startling at times too. So this could be, for example, the likes of you saying something slightly inappropriate in front of your manager, or this might be you interrupting a friend who's talking so you can get your opinion out in the open. Or this could be the likes of you shocking your family with a random joke or piece of information that you found online. Whatever the case may be, there's something startling about your approach to life and about how you come across to others. And in the midst of it all, you're forming these connections in your mind. And some may say with this, some may call you a genius for doing such things, but others may think that you're insane or slightly strange. I suppose it just, it depends on the audience. But even if some people do think you're a bit nuts sometimes, you're still going to fully just fly throughout your life in a way where you march to the beat of your own drum. Perhaps you exemplified such qualities as a small child, such as you refusing to listen to your parents' direction or their authority. Or this could have been the likes of you demanding that you wear a certain outfit that you really like. Maybe from a young age, your parents could sense that you were going to be trouble, aka rebellious, stubborn, and unpredictable. However, this is not to say that you have been accepted with open arms for being an individual, right? In fact, it suggested that growing up, you might have felt quite different and strange. Now, I know that we can all go through these awkward moments where it's like, or even stages where it's like, nobody gets me. But for you Aquarius risings, maybe growing up, you tried to do whatever you could to fit in, or to be invited, or to feel welcomed. Maybe you, in an attempt to fit in and to be understood, you spread yourself out very wide by trying to engage with other children, or by joining in on certain activities that were popular at the time, or by asking your parents for the latest trending outfit or the latest materials or devices in an attempt to be noticed or to be recognized by your peers. But perhaps on your quest to pursue group acceptance, you were actually pushed out as an individual. Or maybe as you strive to be acknowledged by your peers, you felt deep down that you weren't being authentic to who you truly were. But yet, there's many profound lessons that you could come to learn throughout your journey by coming up against such events. Lessons that involve you finding what makes you unique and what it is about you that makes you stand out from the rest of the crowd, along with lessons that involve thinking for yourself, as well as you making decisions based on your view of the world rather than relying on others to shape your view of the world for you. You know, it's interesting because from a really young age, you might have felt like you're here to do something really special, really great. But as you moved into groups and friendships, your personal identity might have gotten kind of meshed with everyone else's, resulting in a, I don't know what I want right now. But as you grow and you develop, I think you sort of blossom into a more decisive, more directed forward thinker, a person who can make your own decisions and stick to them. A person who speaks and shares from a place of knowing, someone who leads your life not necessarily with the intention of being led by others or even with the intention of leading others. Like I said, you view the world through this lens of humanity, so you're forever considering the bigger picture and what's best for others in terms of what's best for the greater good. But you're also viewing the world through a lens of individuality and freedom. So whilst you're taking in others, you're also trying to identify where you fit into everything. So questions may arise like, where is my place in this big world? Or where do I belong? Or how do I fit in here? What does my future within humanity look like? Yeah, these are some pretty big questions to ask, and quite honestly, you're very smart and intelligent for thinking of such questions. But I think a part of your self-discovery process involves figuring out the answers to these questions. Now, what's also important to keep in mind are the positions of your chart rulers. These are Uranus as well as Saturn. Now, these placements will work together as they show you important areas of your life to consider when conjuring up such questions or such answers as previously mentioned. Though also remember the other 11 houses throughout the chart for more insight into your journey and your life path. Now, I also mentioned that you see the world through a lens of kindness, and this to me suggests that you seek to be kind and cooperative and thoughtful towards others. And if you ever pick up on people who are mean or cruel or maliciously unkind, you might not shy away from letting them know the errors in their ways. Yes, you will be generous and giving and respectful towards other people, but you will most likely not stand it if others take advantage of your kind nature or if they underestimate you. And you'll possibly also dislike it if others are blatantly rude to humans and you know full well that they're in the wrong. Yeah, you know that you have rights and that other people have rights, and so you most likely execute such rights. And in the process, if you hurt some people's feelings, you'll politely express that there are consequences to how people act and how they treat others. Essentially, you won't settle for unfair behavior or treatment. Now, furthermore, your physical appearance can exemplify quite clearly your quirks and your uniqueness and your individuality. So this can be the likes of your tattoos, or if you're having piercings. It could also be seen through possible hair dye, where you dye your hair all these different colors, or through the makeup that you create if you do wear any. Then again, maybe you're an Aquarius rising and you don't really care much for tattoos or piercings or hair dye. Either way, you march to the beat of your own drum when it comes to your physical appearance. And much more so, I would say, as you do grow up, you know, because the more you do discover about yourself, I think the more you don't care about what other people think of you. Well, more specifically, you don't care about what irrelevant people think. And what I further mean by this actually is that you're also discovering who your people are, who your community is, who your tribe is. So this type of friendship circle you wish to be a part of, most likely a tight-knit one. Likewise, this may be a family that you wish to create with a partner. Or this may be a team that you build within a particular career that you enjoy or that you wish to pursue. Basically, there's something about finding those people who have your back, who value you and your time, and who you can count on and who you trust. And to be honest, I think this comes with trial and error. But you're typically someone who's willing to wait it out to see what happens in the long run. Like I said at the very beginning of this section, you observe what different patterns are, so you can see what they mean for your future. And so in this respect, you're quite a future orientated person, and when you notice things connecting and joining together, it's almost like a green light just saying, okay, you're on the right path, keep moving forward. But on the other hand, you, much like the Aquarius suns and the Aquarius moons, you can also spot the inconsistencies and those cracks. And when you do, Aquarius risings, you give yourself time to think about the next strategy, to think about the next move. Though the last thing I just want to mention is to do with your energy levels. See, your energy levels, they can fluctuate, they can be quite erratic, sometimes quite shaky and turbulent. So for example, you might bite your nails, you might fidget a lot, or you might shake your leg or your foot. Maybe you often have so much like energy just built up within you, especially mental energy, and so you just need to release it all and just let it out sometimes. Or maybe you find it hard to sit still whenever you're speaking to others or whenever you are listening to others. Perhaps there are some days when you feel more mentally clear and just ready, and so you can execute the day with a better vision. But then you know what, maybe on other days, perhaps you feel kind of fuzzy and a bit flat with a lack of vision. I think it really all depends on the things that impact your energy levels. But there may be something quite exciting and quite startling about your energy levels overall. Now, with this though, I just want to say, make sure to look at Mars in the chart, locate where that is, because quite perhaps this Mars placement may tell a completely different story to what I'm saying, though to be fair, it could certainly add to the story. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my very long video all about the differences between the Aquarius Sun, the Aquarius Moon, and the Aquarius Rising. Now, if you do happen to have any thoughts and opinions on today's video, then certainly let us know what you thought of the video in the comment section down below. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, thank you for subscribing, and of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button, and also make sure that you give this video a like, remember, and I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!